Welcome to Friendship Friday. My name is Mark Long, rector of the parish of St Andrew in Newlands, Cape Town. Today is already the first Friday in August. Time moves along, and so does life around us. There's a lot going on in the back of my mind as we meet today. Part of it is sparked by some of the news articles I've read as we come to the end of the week. Much of those touching on the ongoing corruption in government, and particularly around tenders, and of course with COVID-19, the corruption that has happened around that and tendering for various needs. The despondency, I think, that breeds is that we had huge hopes that Ramaphosa and his administration would deal more effectively with corruption, certainly within government and more broadly within our society. And certainly we still hear the words of commitment to that, but I think we really struggle to see the action that goes with it. And that breeds hopelessness on all sorts of levels. So I hold that in mind. This coming Sunday is Women's Day in South Africa, an important day, just remembering the strength of women in our communities, willingness to stand up against injustices over the years, and continuing to do that in other ways. And a number of positive stories from U-Turn, which is an organization that works with the homeless. And they have a number of very inspiring stories of women who've ended up on the streets, who've pulled their lives together and are moving forward again. And so I sort of juxtaposed that against the despair that I saw in the news media around corruption, to actually see some meaningful things happening and women being at the forefront of that. And so I think part of my question is, in the midst of everything that we cope with, it always for me comes back again to faith and the role that our faith plays in our lives. And the question is, where do we look? What is the focus? It's very easy to get overcome or overwhelmed by media, and to become quite depressed because of that. And so I hope that on one level we are reading or interacting with social media and other media in one hand, and the scriptures in the other. And one of the verses from the Psalm, which is part of today's Eucharist reading, Psalm 124, verse 8, says the following: "Our help is in the name of the Lord who made heaven and earth." And for me, there's always this need to look up from whatever is swirling around us, to look up and to see God and to acknowledge God and to acknowledge God's presence in our lives and the help that he gives us. And so this verse in particular for me is just helpful, a reminder that in the midst of everything, whatever the personal chaos may be, whatever the community chaos may be, whatever the national chaos may be, and of course under this pandemic, whatever the global chaos may be, to remember that God is my help, God is our help in these times. And to find sustenance from our faith, and find sustenance particularly in Scripture, that may really undergird who we are and how we see the world. But I'm not sure what it may be that you're coping with as we come to the end of this week, what friendly help would be useful for you. But I would suspect that if you are able to look up and see God and see God's light and God's goodness, and just to know that infuses our lives, and that light actually does, despite the brokenness of our society, that light infuses our communities. And it's so important that we do take time to focus on the light, however small it may seem. Certainly in a number of my children's sermons, I often just remind children about the importance of a candle flame in a big dark room. It's amazing how just lighting a small candle, that little flame, drives the shadows back. It may not drive them away completely, and they will hang around on the edges of our vision. But actually, while we look at the candle, while we sit in that light, there is a sense of safety and goodness in it, as much as we may fear the darkness around us. And it's a verse like this one from Psalm 124 that just reminds us that actually there is nothing to fear because God is present, and to just allow that light of God to shine and to sustain that light however we can and wherever we find it, to point ourselves and point others to that light. And it's amazing how a little flame can make a huge difference. And our awareness of that light and that hope can change lives and can change communities. And so may we embrace the light and the love of God. And may that be something that builds a renewed and deeper peace into our lives and our nation.